Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monte Belmonte. Later in the show, what's the over-under on another government shutdown happening in the next couple of weeks?
I don't like these odds.
Yeah, I don't like them either, but we'll hear what Congressman Jim McGovern has to say about it coming up.
And is there an ethical and environmentally friendly way to remain an omnivore? Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick thinks so, and we'll hear what they have to say on our local hero spotlight on the way.
But first,
we hit the water.
The mayor's going to kick off the races at 8 a.m. Saturday, September 23rd, Paper City Regatta.
It's also my favorite kind of cheese to make baked ziti with.
Paper City
Regatta?
No. Yeah,
Regatta cheese? Come on.
It's best to let it just sit there, and then he has to stew in it and think about what he's done.
When you think about the river in Holyoke, think about power. And so one of the really great innovations in Holyoke is the power canals and the hydroelectric dam. And so rivers have a tremendous amount of power. In terms of Holyoke, it generates electricity, but they also have power for people, like the power of the river to transform people, right? And so Jim, he's transformed, right? He's in a wheelchair and he gets on the river and he flies, right? And so the ability for rivers to power our hearts, our souls, and not just create electricity in Holyoke, that's really special.
We're standing on a dock in Holyoke, in the river, and I'm with Andy Fisk, who is the former head of the Connecticut River Conservancy, and for many years on my previous radio show, we got in all sorts of river-related adventures, from everything from water skiing to preparing sea lamprey as a delicacy.
Actually went hunting for sea lamprey, remember? We found them in the river.
To find them in the river. First of all, Andy Fisk, what's your new role in regards to rivers?
I'm really excited. I'm now working with American Rivers, a national nonprofit that protects rivers from the headwater streams all the way across the country down to cities around the country.
And you're a Holyoke resident, so this is right in your backyard.
We are at Jones Ferry in Holyoke, and the city of Holyoke has made tremendous investments in the river here. It's the river access facility, and we're standing on the docks that allow people to swim, paddle, and row in the Connecticut River.
And we're going to row in one of these barges here because this coming weekend is the Paper City Regatta. Khalees and I, do you do a lot of rowing, Khalees?
I like rowing. I haven't done it in years.
Yeah. I rowed a dinghy once in a while when I was a kid, and that's about it.
Quit playing with your dinghy.
It's great because I see people of all different abilities and ages that are getting ready to row with us today, and also different professions, including the mayor of Holyoke, Joshua Garcia. Have you rowed out here before, Mayor Joshua?
I've rowed a few times, many years ago.
Yeah. What does this place mean for you and the city here in Holyoke?
The river is an incredible asset that we have access to, and I remember when I was a kid being a participant of youth programs coming down here and being able to access the river. Being able to have this in our backyard, right along the edges of our city, is absolutely incredible.
Is this training for the Paper City Regatta this weekend?
Yeah, right.
We'll launch the Mayor's Cup.
I like that.
Cup. I challenge all the other mayors.
Oh.
You hear that, Nicole LaChapelle?
Does she have to fight if she's on her way out?
Yeah, she's from Holyoke originally, so she should come.
She's a Holyoker.
What are your names?
Susan Marciniak,
Where are you from?
Holyoke.
And tell me about your relationship to Holyoke Road.
I've been here for 11 years now. It's wonderful.
Yeah? How often do you come out here and row?
About 3 times a week or so.
What are you rowing in? What are these? Are these long, thin boats what you're rowing in?
Yes, this is a shell. It's a 2-person. Barbara and I are going out. Barbara's one of our adaptive rowers, and we're going to go out for a morning row.
Barbara, what's your last?
Black,
Where are you from?
Northampton.
Tell me about your relationship to rowing.
I started rowing through the Universal Access Program, which is adaptive outdoor activities that the Department of Conservation and Recreation sponsors. And I started rowing with Stephanie. I have never stopped since. That was about 20 years ago.
When people hear the words adaptive rowing, what does that mean?
It means you have some disability. I'm blind, but otherwise I'm able-bodied. And so we have people who have different abilities and disabilities. I mean, sometimes I go out in a double, like this morning with Susan, but more often I row with the regular crew. So I have finally learned how to listen enough to know what's happening in the boat and be able to row, as part of a team.
That's amazing. How does that feel?
It's good. I've never done any kind of team sport in my life before. Yeah. I'm not the best rower in the world, but people put up with me, and I feel good that I'm able to do it.
I love that. What's?
This boat is called Double or Nothing.
Oh yeah, you name even these shells?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything tries to have a name.
I would call my shell of a former self.
Oh, that's a good one.
What's your name?
My name's John Hooks Davis. I've been rowing here since, I don't know, 2013.
And you've got the Holyoke Rose
Yes.
regalia on here. Not regatta, but regalia.
Left behind by some previous person named John.
So that's perfect. Are you official here at Holyoke Rose? Like, is this your profession, or are you here just for
I
fun?
am now, darn it.
Yeah.
I used to be able to dodge that question, do you work here? But they pay me a little bit now, and I coach the middle schoolers.
So middle schoolers from Holyoke or from all around?
We get some from all around, but I walk up, twice a week to the STEM Academy just up the street and gather a little group of them and walk them down, and that's fun. We got
some youth rowers too. What's your name?
My name's Isabel.
Where are you from?
I'm from Holyoke, but I live in Springfield now.
Do the Holyoke students try to push the Springfield students out of the boat and vice versa?
I wish. That'd be pretty funny.
What's your name?
Gabriel.
Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Holyoke, but right now I live in Chicopee.
And you come down here to row too?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you on the same team, you two?
Yep.
Nice. So who do you row against other teams from other places?
Yeah, we do. We sometimes row against Springfield PVRC down that way. There's other places, sometimes we row against Lennox, Gentle Giants, Brass up in the Berkshires. So yeah, a bunch of people
Down the river, you have to row to your meet and then row back.
We do.
You do?
We do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had to row back from Springfield the other night.
Free rides for anyone.
Yeah, we're not getting on the bus. We've got these boats.
getting the boats to the race in Springfield isn't so bad, but then they all have to get them back later.
What's your name?
Jacob.
And where do you row with?
No one. I'm just here for fun.
You just heard the mayor was going to be on a boat. We're going to come hang out.
Yeah.
You go to Stick though, right?
I do go to Stick, yeah.
You are you on a rowing club there?
Stick doesn't have it. They used to a long time ago, but
But you do what there?
I wrestle.
Are we going to wrestle on the boat?
I hope so. I think I have a pretty good chance of winning if we do.
So Barbara's getting in the boat, in the shell, using the sounds around her to figure out the timing of the rowing with another person. And she's really good at feathering those oars, which I am not very good at, I don't think. But we'll see in a minute.
I'm good at feathering, but it also makes me really bad at kayaking. The timing for it is different. It's time for the barge.
Yeah, I love to barge.
Wait, did you arrange for us to have the Mayor Mike barge?
Yeah. I meant to tell you that, Joshua. So yeah, this is that's Mayor Mike Sullivan, former.
Oh.
So if you need us to paint after today, if you do good, we'll rechristen it.
Yeah,
How about that?
if you brought a bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
But we're drinking it. We're not smashing it.
We're gonna put you in. So
Okay.
pick your preference.
All right.
Tell us what we're doing.
Yeah, tell us what we're doing, Izzy and Gabe.
All right, so we are going to get in the barge. We're just getting people put into certain seats.
When you're thinking about rowing, we're going to be backwards, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things is you look where you have been.
Right.
And I actually think that's pretty cool because if you think about rivers, where have we been? They used to be full of pollution and filthy. They're not anymore, right? So we're looking from where we've been and we're going to be heading to a better place because we keep investing in our
But we
rivers.
don't know where we're going. That's the
Exactly.
problem. We can't see. So
We're
who
trusting
is there
Izzy
a
and Gabe.
navigator on this thing? How are we going to know which way to go?
Izzy and Gabe.
Izzy and Gabe are going to do it?
That's
Yeah,
it.
we get the steer. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We have this.
A rudder?
So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you just move it back and forth.
I
And
get
steer
it.
the boat.
So you're like the commander.
So the three things you think about when you're rowing are rhythm,
Music.
Who could ask for anything more?
balance,
Who could ask for anything more?
and harmony.
Okay, rhythm, balance, and harmony.
So we're gonna have all three of those things today, right?
Rhythm, balance, and harmony. Mezzo-soprano register for the harmonies.
You can't do that.
I know. I'm going to sit behind you, Mayor Josh.
Got it.
That way I can criticize you the whole way. Does it matter which one I take?
Which one do you think? No.
So I can take either or? Nobody even groaned at that joke. Whatever.
Everyone's trying to learn how to do this, Monte.
So right now this is called feather. The blade's flat. When you're not rowing, that's where it's going to be. When you're trying to move the boat, right, you're going to lock the blade in the water so it's going to be straight up and down so it can be locked in the water, and then you're going to be pushing the boat past the blade. You ready for me to release you?
Can you repeat all that again?
Yeah.
Row hard. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You push at me, Monty, and I push at you. Yeah, that's what.
We're on a boat.
Take a good look at us. Where's your nautical theme? Pass me to Afghan.
Dang it.
I got a nautical theme, pass me the Afghan.
Mayor Josh and his entourage at the stern of the boat are going first. Just the first 4 though? So not you, Khalees.
Oh, all right.
Mayor Josh is turning us around. Just like he's turned the city of Holyoke around. This boat is a huge metaphor.
Into, we can weigh it off.
That means stop.
Wait, what means stop?
Weigh it off.
Weigh it off. All right,
Weigh it off?
Over some terms.
Yeah. Hoy is one of them, right? Land ho.
That's the
We don't
C.
use that one.
Okay.
So we have weigh it off, which is basically just stop.
Okay.
So you'll hear like into, so like into, weigh it off. So you count at the catch, you'll be like 1, wait, back up, 2, and then on that, like it's kind of like on the third one, but into. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Let's get rolling. We're kind of drifting downstream. Izzy, let's just get them going. One stroke at a time. They can do this.
All right, one stroke. And
You want
row.
breakfast? Let's go.
Crashing into Mayor Josh's oar here.
Row. So that motion of getting your blade into the water, that little plop it makes, that is called the catch. So row and catch.
There's always a catch.
Row.
I think we're moving.
Are we moving or is the river moving?
We're going. Alright, so like another thing to focus on is you really want to be applying pressure to your feet. So you're really driving, all that power is in your legs. So let's sit ready at the finish, 2 continuous strokes and then pause. Ready and row. That's 1 and 2. Pausing. How does everybody feel? Let's do Keko.
Feeling that rhythm, balance, and harmony?
I'm feeling the rhythm, balance, and harmony, Andy.
Sing it, sing it.
No, my knees are in the way.
Row, row, row your boat gently down. Oh, sorry.
You know you guys are doing very well for first-timers, for a boatload of first-timers.
Thank you.
We appreciate your pity.
So Monte, you don't want to turn it feather until you're really done driving. There's no pressure on it. Then
I just like the feather, all right?
Hey Monte, with it up in the air now, just feel how the oar really likes to be either in this position or that position. If you work too hard at thinking about where the angle is, you're going to get in the way.
You really want to pry
you want
that.
to drop your right shoulder and lean in. You want to embrace the work rather than getting away from the work. Embrace it.
Am I the only one doing things wrong on this boat?
This is for radio. They have to engage with you.
I'm not an idiot.
Yeah, the mayor's making me make these mistakes.
Oh, wow.
So remember not to stand on your seat when you get out. Stephanie Moore.
And what do you do here?
I'm the director of Holyoke Rose.
You were the one who was yelling at me from a megaphone about get better at this project.
I'm the one who yells and doesn't row, right?
Me too. I got yelled at also.
Yeah, you
I
got
yelled at you too. Yeah, that's my job.
Your tips were helpful, and I was trying to keep them in mind while trying to also control my body.
I told you you're supposed to feel stupid the first day. So,
no, I
so
feel
perfect.
like I accomplished
Mission
that.
accomplished, yes. Tell us a little bit about the regatta.
So Saturday, September 23rd, starts at 9 o'clock. We have quite an array of rowers coming. We have a group of adaptive rowers from CRI, about 10 of them. We have our own adaptive rowers. This is the first year that we had a really large group of adaptive rowers, so that's exciting. And then we have a lot of high school kids coming from Connecticut and Massachusetts. And then, of course, we have all our adults. This is a big event for our adults. We have a lot of adults, and this is our chance to show off what we can do.
If people want to learn more about getting involved in rowing and coming down here to Jones Ferry to Holyoke Rose, what should they do? Like, what kind of programs are available to the public?
So we still have Monday, Wednesday night drop-in sculling. So beginners can come 5:30 at night on Monday and Wednesdays for at least another 4 weeks while the weather's nice. And we'll throw you in a boat with pontoons and some instruction, and we'll keep you safe, and you'll figure it out.
You get yelled at a little bit from a megaphone from another boat, and you feel good about yourself when you're all done.
I'd be happy to yell at you.
I can see why people do this on rowing machines in their house as exercise, because it feels really good, but the rhythm of doing it with people in the water is so much fun. When you hit that, the couple times we hit that little stride, it felt really good.
Yeah, that's it. And you even just got a hint in the barge, but it's when you out there with a crew and you suddenly get in sync and your power just gets amplified, and it's like, oh, whoa, that's the charge for me at least. Okay, this is cool. Now we just are a powerful unit.
Yeah, I love it. How was your row, Barbara?
Windy, but good. How about you?
It was great for a first time.
Those oars are very large.
Yeah, they were. How do you feel, Mayor Joshua, after rowing out there with us?
I feel all right.
Yeah? You gonna feel it tonight?
I sure am.
Are you gonna come out to the Paper City Regatta?
Yes, I'll stop in, welcome everybody to the city. It's always a beautiful time here in the city when regatta's happening.
Beautiful. How many boats do you usually have? come to the regatta? Do you have any idea?
It's about 60 or 80, and we
Wow.
get people from New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut.
Yeah,
So
and it
they're
starts here at Jones Ferry.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
They launch here. The racing starts 4 kilometers down, so they finish here. So we get to see the finish.
Oh, that's great.
If people just kind of want to watch boats on the water, because that's what watching a regatta is, there's some nice spots along the bike path in Chicopee, and there's parking at the Chicopee boat launch for the bike path. So that's a really good place for just sort of, if you're curious, that's great. The lot gets very crowded with the racers.
As a crew, we've got one really big decision. One of the awesome traditions in rowing is that when you win, and I don't know, Stephanie, did we win today? So when you win, your coxswain.
What now?
Izzy, we get to throw her in the river.
What?
Right? So what do we say? Izzy in the river?
No, it's cold.
It's too cold.
All right.
You're not dressed for the river. You were an excellent
But we have
coach.
thrown you in, right?
I have been thrown in.
Awesome coxswain. We have
Yeah,
won some
arms
races and
legs
she's
just
gotten wet.
flung straight in the river.
It's like pouring a bucket of Gatorade over your coach after you win a football game or something.
Exactly.
Kinda.
Izzy, you were a great coach. Thanks for showing us all how to do that.
Thank you for coming.
I feel like we should also mention that the prize for the regatta is pies.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you win pies.
Oh, wow. Maybe we should go out there and compete now that we're professional.
We would definitely not win those pies,
No.
but it's definitely incentive.
Yeah, but if we had the music of DeBarge to inspire us on our barge, one never knows.
It would still show up late.
Later in the show, we'll tell you a way you can support your rivers happening this weekend, a pitch for pitching in on this weekend's Source to Sea cleanup.
We've also got a local hero spotlight on a farm trying to do right by its animals before we eat them. Is there an ethical way to be an omnivore? We'll talk with Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick, Mass.
And next up, McGoverning with McGovern, we'll talk about the speaker insurrection, a looming government shutdown, and the congressional dress code.
All of these are terrifying, but you're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's Jim McGovern, a weekly segment we call McGoverning with McGovern. You can send your questions for the Congressman to the show here at the Fab413 at nepm.org. Several listeners weighing in with essentially the same question that has to do with the chaos in the House of Representatives, specifically with the Republican Party, and an insurrection against their speaker, Kevin McCarthy, led in no small part by Matt Gaetz. And it seems like and you have tweeted this, the MAGA plan to shut down the government, impeach Joe Biden, and oust Kevin McCarthy, all for their own power, nothing for everyday Americans. That was a tweet from Congressman McGovern, whom we're speaking to. Is this government shutdown inevitable at this point? You're staying longer in D.C. than you were planning. Is this something we should all be bracing for?
Well, I mean, I think it looks increasingly likely based on the irrational behavior of a small group of Republicans who seem to be in charge of everything around here. I mean, they're blackmailing Kevin McCarthy into, basically pulling legislation from the floor and not bringing other legislation up for debate or a vote. And the continuing resolution that would keep the government open, the one they brought up last week that wasn't good enough for the extreme right, would have cut every program by 8% across the board, every account by 8% except defense. And some programs like WIC would be cut, Head Start would be cut, but some programs like LIHEAP would be cut by 65%. And what these right-wingers said is, that's not deep enough. We need to go deeper. I mean, this is insane. So now they're, in their back room trying to come up with a more extreme plan. That's not going anywhere in the Senate, and that certainly wouldn't be signed by President Biden. What they ought to be doing right now is sitting down and talking to everybody, not just Democrats, but Senate Republicans. What is it that we can agree on to keep the government running? And what is it that we can, agree on that will be the basis of a long-term funding bill? And for whatever reason, they don't seem like they're interested in doing that. And so that's troublesome. But we're staying here. Nothing is inevitable. I mean, this can be avoided if rational heads prevail. But the clowns are running the circus here. And I've never quite seen a situation like we're witnessing right now where we have Republicans getting up and cheering on a shutdown. So what? Shut the government down. Who cares? And we're trying to give them a little history lesson that when the government shuts down, people get hurt. And by the way, if you're worried about the deficit and the debt, it's costly. The last shutdown cost us billions of dollars. So people ought to get with it. And hopefully this weekend we'll make some progress. But right now they seem to be going in the wrong direction, more extreme, more to the far right, which, quite frankly, I think makes a lot of Republicans who are from moderate districts feel uncomfortable.
There seems to be, according to Politico, a small group of centrist Democrats that are secretly working with McCarthy and whoever he still has as allies in the Republican Party that would maintain his speakership but would also create a deal to fund the government. Are you aware of that? Are you part of this centrist cabal trying to keep the government open?
Yeah, I know there's lots of conversations going on behind the scenes, but here's the problem. The problem is that the small group, of Republican renegades, the QAnon clown caucus, I call them, are basically saying to McCarthy, you either do what we say or we're going to vote to oust you. So McCarthy has to decide whether or not he wants to make a deal, and if he wants to save his speakership, he's going to have to start talking to some Democrats. And as I had said to the Washington Post yesterday, look, if McCarthy wants to work with us and he's looking for Democratic votes, what do we get, right? I mean, we can't be a cheap date just because we don't know what's going to come after McCarthy. The bottom line is, will you work with us to come up with budgets that maybe not everything we want, but actually protect some of our things that we value? There has to be a give and take and all of that. But understand this. I think that would mean McCarthy at best could be speaker for the rest of this term because, these guys, they have the votes right now to be able to oust him. All they need is 5 votes. I think they probably have about 17 or 20 votes that would vote right now to remove the speaker. The problem for them is they don't know who they would replace him with, who could get the votes to replace him.
So they could remove him with a small amount of votes because this is the deal they cobbled together. But then if they were to vote for a new speaker, it would have to be a vote of the whole House?
We have the vote of the whole House, and the question is, do they have the votes for anybody else?
Right.
But in some kind of twisted way, for those Freedom Caucus people, this is kind of the best of all worlds. They can toy with McCarthy, they can threaten him, they can bully him. They get a lot of attention. And by the way, they're raising millions and millions and millions of dollars online. It is insane. So this is a fundraising juggernaut for the extreme right wing, and they are taking full advantage of it. And so they can continue to taunt McCarthy and not be responsible for anything. And look, this is all because Kevin McCarthy gave everything to them. And this is basically, the result of that. This is the weakest speakership, I think, in history. And he made it that way.
One of the main reasons, or one of the main players in why it's so weak, is Representative Matt Gaetz. But you, Congressman, are being lauded by none other than Amnesty International for working with Gaetz. And they tweeted out, thank you, Representative McGovern, for explaining why the U.S. should never send or support the use of cluster munitions, and supporting the amendments co-sponsored by Democrat Representative Sarah Jacobs and Representative Matt Gaetz to end their transfer by the U.S. government. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky was at the UN this week. The Biden administration looking for more money in Ukraine. Is there becoming more of a centrist consensus in Congress, even with some Democrats, in response to the war in Ukraine? Is there a pushback from your caucus, from the Democrats, in what seems like limitless funds to support the war, or is that essentially still a partisan issue?
Look, the thing you just mentioned, the amendment that I'm supporting with Sarah Jacobs and Matt Gaetz, it really is basically what would prohibit the sale of cluster munitions to Ukraine or to any other country in the world. And I believe the cluster munitions should be banned, and we should sign an international treaty saying that we will never use them. These weapons not only cause great damage to civilian populations when they're used, but when they drop, little bomblets go all over the place, and sometimes they're there for years. And people stumble upon them, children stumble upon them. They're a particularly cruel weapon. And so I've been angry with the Biden administration for even thinking to give them to Ukraine, and now they are doing that. We need to stop that. And this is not just about Ukraine; it's about every other country in the world. We should not be selling these or providing these kinds of weapons. Period. Look, the issue in Ukraine is you have some people say walk away, okay, and then what happens? Putin takes over, and then what? Is that it? Nobody believes that's it. Certainly the countries around Ukraine don't believe that's it. So we need to figure out a way to bring this conflict to an end. Our European allies are stepping up quite significantly in providing assistance to Ukraine. I hate wars. We all hate wars. We want these wars to end. We got to figure out ways to do that. But just walking away and saying, Vladimir, you do whatever you want, I'm not comfortable with that option, quite frankly. So that's kind of where I am.
Yesterday on the show, we had a union member from SAG-AFTRA. There is going to be a rally in your district in Northampton this evening in support of the SAG-AFTRA actors strike. Meanwhile, you've got the UAW, the United Auto Workers, on strike. President Biden is being upended, is being an end around perhaps by the Trump campaign for president, as he's going to be going to Detroit. And it seems like some Democrats are worried that he's being outmaneuvered campaign-wise with this support of labor by the Trump campaign. What's your take on the president's strategy in response to these unions on strike?
First of all, I heard on the news today, and maybe let's hope it's true, that there may be a deal in the making on the SAG-AFTRA strike. So we'll see how that progresses today. And, you know, on the UAW strike, I'm with the workers, and President Biden's with the workers. I mean, this is, the management gets a 40% raise, and these workers get virtually nothing. I mean, these are the people who are responsible for the profits for these auto manufacturers. So they deserve more respect than they're getting. And as far as Trump going to do whatever he's going to do with you, I mean, look, to be honest with you, if you're a member of a union and you think that Donald Trump is a good alternative, then you're not paying attention. This is a guy who has busted unions, who is basically stuck it to working people time and time and time again. You know, he's using these workers as props, which is offensive. But please, I mean, don't even go there and to try to, for anybody to even suggest that somehow that Trump is a credible figure with union members. If people are members of unions and they think that Trump somehow is their friend, they're not paying attention.
Massachusetts Democrats are going to be meeting this Saturday. It looks like you're not going to be able to go to this at the Tsongas Center in Lowell to adopt a party agenda or a platform for the Massachusetts Democratic Party. Any interesting races or places in Massachusetts with your party that you're watching in this sort of off-season election year?
You know, I mean, look, we have a lot of local races happening, you know, in cities and towns all throughout the Commonwealth, and you know, and I'm hoping that people will understand that those races are important, will participate, will pay attention, and make sure that we, you know, elect people of like mind who have progressive values and who want to make a difference. So, you know, one of my I'm always concerned that there's such a drop off in participation in local elections when, in fact, they are so incredibly important. You know, who's your city councilor, who's your mayor, who's on the select board, who's on the school committee. Those are incredibly important races. And it's good that people turn out in national elections. That's very, very important. But these local elections are important too. So everybody should make sure that they vote.
Yeah, we're going to hopefully talk to a lot of at least the mayoral candidates in the 413 up for mayor now that most of the preliminaries are over. Last question. I know this is mostly happening in the Senate, but I'm assuming it could affect your chamber as well. Dress codes. We've got all this new debate about what is appropriate dress wear in the halls of Congress. You've even got Senator Fetterman saying he would wear a suit if the House of Representatives could get their act together. Is there any scuttlebutt in talking about changing the rules in regards to dress code in the House of Representatives while the Senate is thinking about relaxing the dress code?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't care what people wear. I mean, but you know, and it's amazing to me that it is such a big deal in the United States Senate. I mean, again, we all ought to be focused on making sure the government works and don't shut the government down. I mean, I wish the passion that I've heard from some of these senators, objecting to the way, Senator Fetterman dresses. I wish that passion were directed toward helping the public and helping make sure that people, don't have to deal with a government shutdown. But and I would say I'm not a fashion plate, so I should not. I have no right to comment on people's attire.
But do you think that we could loosen up some of the folks if they didn't have their necks in a tie all the time? If they could loosen up a little bit?
Yeah, I think they need more than that to loosen up. Again, I mean, we have to make sure that what is happening here is that we focus on the serious business of governing this country and making sure that, people don't fall through the cracks and that we're doing, what people expect us to do. And again, there's been more headlines in newspapers about dress codes than there has about, whether we should sell cluster munitions to Ukraine or, how are you going to resolve this, looming government shutdown? So, we need to get our priorities straight. And
that's why I asked those questions first, Congressman. I definitely wanted to talk about the dress code, but I saved it to last in case we ran out of time.
Right, but good advice to Republicans concerned about dress code. Take the job seriously. Don't take yourself seriously.
And get fashion help. I mean, come on. It's easy to look good. Get a suit that fits you. It makes a big difference. U.S. Congressman, I have some. I mean, you've seen how I dress up on the March for the Food Bank. I don't know how that would fly in Congress. Yeah,
it would certainly cause a lot of discussion. So
you should hear what I'm plotting about wearing this year. We'll see.
U.S. My breath.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Congressman Jim McGovern, joins us every week. You can send questions for the Congressman at thefab413 at nepm.org or text us 1-800-639-9120. Thanks, as always, Congressman.
All the best. Talk to you next week. Bye.
With the global climate crisis, somehow that's really hard to say. Why? Why is that hard to say? Climate crisis getting worse every year. Is it time to give up eating meat? A farm in Warwick, Mass. thinks there are ethical options if meat is still on your menu. Up next, local hero spotlight on Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Time for our local hero spotlight with Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero folks, who are in the midst of their climate change and farming week, where there's a series of events talking about climate change and farming. And as we all know, one of the big things that leads to climate change is the world's obsession with eating meat. However, are there good and ethical and environmentally friendly ways to make meat part of your diet? Well, that's one of the things that we'll talk about with Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick, Massachusetts. And we're speaking with Jennifer Kaur and Olivier Flagolet. Did I say that right, Olivier?
You did.
Trying my best to do French as best as I can. But tell us what you're growing at Hettie Belle Farm, or raising at Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick.
So we are raising a variety of livestock such as beef, lamb, pork, chickens, and ducks. Some turkeys.
How much space are these animals growing on?
We are currently using about 50 acres of pastures for the ruminants, and roughly 10-15 acres of woodland for the pigs.
Hettie Belle is a farm that's on land that's really how you can productively and ethically use that land. You cannot be growing produce on that land.
So if it were not for the farm, the management of the land would have to take other resources up, and human beings have to eat, and a lot of us like meat. Jennifer from Hettie Belle Farm, tell us about what got you into the world of raising meats.
Yeah, I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in suburban America, like many of us. And I think for us, starting the business was in so many ways about the life that we were going to provide for our kids and the rhythms of the natural world and how we could be connected to that. So raising animals, right? We're raising sentient beings for human nourishment. That's an important sort of responsibility to do that right. So for us, this was about raising the kind of meat that we wanted to be eating as a family, and how could we make that available to other people.
What about you, Olivier? You are from France originally. What brought you to the United States and got you into the world of raising animals?
Big question. Let's say life taking me where I needed to be at the right time. I did a lot of traveling back in the 80s. I ended up in Vermont, but eventually after meeting Jen, I ended up working in farm education based place in Athol, Massachusetts. And from that moment, Jen and I, we were both working at the same place, and slowly, as we are doing our job together, we slowly nourish the dream of farming for ourselves. And it just happened that we had moved to Warwick, and that we realized a lot of land was available to us.
And it's worth noting that we are partially achieving Khalees's dream of focusing on Franklin County towns that are not in the fabulous 413, but are in the fabulous 978, including Warwick, Massachusetts.
One thing that we've encountered with farms that are doing meat is the issue of processing. Have you seen that it's an issue for you, and where do you get yours done?
Yeah, so we use Adams Farm, and we're pretty fortunate that Adams is in Athol, so it's very close for us, and we center in every way possible animal welfare in our entire farm and kind of operation. And so that transport from the farm to the processing facility is a source of stress for livestock. So we feel really grateful that we have a place that's within 10, 12 minutes from the farm, so that stress is reduced pretty dramatically. And we have had a long time relationships with the folks there at Adams and feel really pleased with the quality of what we get and with that partnership.
We're speaking with Jennifer Kaur and Olivier Flagolet, who are both from Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick, and Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero folks.
So I think it's, a lot of times we have people on who do farm CSAs around produce, but you have a meat CSA that you do for the households that are not your own. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Sure thing. So since we began our business in 2010-ish, we've known from the beginning with clarity that we wanted to provide a CSA, that was the business model that we were pursuing. And part of that is around being in community with other families. So we have about 175 members. As you mentioned, Monte, Warwick is not a huge town. It's a small and sometimes forgotten town. So we cannot move all of our meat in Warwick. So we rely pretty heavily on partnerships with others where we also do distributions. So one of those is at Atlas Farm. One is at Crimson and Clover Farm in Florence. And then we also have a distribution in Brattleboro as well as on farm in Warwick. And we put our meat together as a multi-species package, if you will. So it's many months in the winter season, in the fall winter. And it includes our 100% grass-fed lamb and beef, our organically fed chicken and pork. And then we sell birds on the side as well, ducks and turkeys.
It's getting to be the part of the year where people might be thinking about turkeys a little bit more frequently. What about if people want turkeys for Thanksgiving? Is that something that Hettie Belle raises, Olivier?
We do raise some, not too many as we used to, but we have a few left.
Was your farm impacted by the bird flu? I mean, we know that there was a major situation in the midst of our own pandemic. The birds were suffering as well. How did Hettie Belle fare during the bird flu?
We were not impacted at all. As far as I know, as far as I've observed.
You would be the one that would know, though, right?
Right, I guess so. But
I mean, Monte wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know.
Maybe
You're there.
Jennifer might
know. The birds might know more than you.
As far as I know, meaning as far as I have observed, of course, if we had had a case of bird flu, I think the processor would have noticed and rejected all of the birds.
Right.
But we are a small farm, and we are making a intentional point to raise all of our animals in such a way they can exercise their natural instinct and behavior as much as possible. That's the least we can do to these creatures, because ultimately they're making the sacrifice to give us their life so that we can provide a family with good meat, but also all of our members and their kids, which is very important. So we make the point to raise our animals outside, not in a confined environment, even the most fragile ones, such as the birds. So our chickens live outside pretty much all the time. We have losses, of course, from predators like hawks mostly, but we weigh this into the balance and we think it's worth it. Is it a reason why we did not get affected by the bird flu? It's possible. If so, then good for us.
Yeah. Speaking with Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick, Jennifer and Olivier, and Phil Corman from CISA.
Jennifer and Olivier, you were mentioning that you used to think of yourselves as grass farmers, but now you're actually thinking more about the soil and the water. So could you walk us through that?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as thinking about the fullness of the resources that we both rely on and impact. So Warwick sits at the very top of a watershed. So the choices that we make with our livestock there, they impact everybody downstream from us. And it's something that we're quite conscious of. And then I would also just say, as we think about meat and climate and the resources that we rely on to raise the food that we depend on, I think livestock often get demonized in this narrative as we sort of collectively think about this challenge of the climate crisis that we're in, right? But what we don't think about is the biogenic carbon cycle and sort of the cyclical nature and where livestock fit into that. So we all learned in 8th grade, maybe 7th grade, about photosynthesis, right? So there's carbon in the atmosphere. Plants uptake that carbon and they turn it into vegetative matter that grazing ruminants need to eat. So they eat that, and then in the course of their digestive process, they poop and they pee and they burp just like us. And so I know that urine and that
Monte's
manure.
so disappointed to talk about poop and pee right now.
I know. It's important. It's cycling, but it's the burps that get really demonized, right? It's that methane. And yes, methane is a really potent greenhouse gas. That is real, and that is a part of livestock farming. But I think it's important to realize that methane's in the atmosphere for like maybe 12 years, and then it converts back into CO2, and then those same plants take that up again. So if we thought about like the global herd of animals on the planet, if that were to stay the same size, we wouldn't actually be increasing carbon in the atmosphere. This is a very different, a very cyclical process that is not related to the burning of fossil fuels, where we're actually extracting carbon and then releasing new atmospheric carbon. So I think that when we think about sort of what are those resources, how are livestock engaged in managing those resources on a cycle, there's a place for grazing animals. There are partners in helping us manage this land for water quality, for soil building, and for plant management.
But if it were to scale up to a huge level, that's when it starts to become even more problematic?
Yes, you mentioned the word huge. We're not huge.
Right.
We're small, intentionally small, and we are going to remain small. We have a relationship with the natural world. We need to be able to maintain that relationship, to maintain the balance between what we take and what we give back. It gives us time to raise our animals as humanly as possible in order to offer all of our members the cleanest, purest meat we can possibly offer.
Your process is so interesting, especially since this is a traditional like raising method in France, and you have a thing on your website about how you're not labeled organic, which I know is a common thing around here, but would you mind talking a little bit about what you're actually doing, which definitely is organic, versus this label that we put on a lot of things for farms much larger than yours who may not actually be contributing to the environment in the way that you are?
Yeah, we had chosen early on not to pursue organic certification just because of our scale and because we sell 100% of our product directly to customers. So we have this relationship. Our farm is very open. Our members come to the farm. We can talk to them about our practices. We can talk to them about the grain that we feed when we do feed grain, which is just to the pigs and the poultry. We have thought about certification recently only because it is an easier story to tell when you're communicating to people in a wholesale environment. But honestly, for us, we manage all of our grassland organically. We're only applying our own manure and organic wood ash. We purchase only certified organic feed because it's important for us to have that assurance that the land where that grain is grown elsewhere is managed organically. So for us, that level of commitment has been something that has been clear since the beginning for us and has been something we've been unwilling to compromise, even when the price of organic grain has skyrocketed. And we've found other ways to absorb that cost by being more efficient in our business. We recycle a lot. We reuse things. We try to fix things that are broken instead of buying new things. And that allows us to maintain that commitment to certified organic grain and to these grassland management practices.
So if I was interested in diving in, getting a meat share, is there anything you would tell me if I've not had your meat products before or from another small local farm? Would I be tasting differences from the commercial meat that I might be used to eating?
Animals have flavor. They should have flavor. And so if we hear anything from someone who's taking that leap from really conventional sort of grocery store meat into our CSA, It's that, wow, the flavors are strong. So pork tastes like pork. Chicken tastes like chicken. Beef is beefy. And that's something that we celebrate, and we try to provide a lot of recipes and a lot of cooking tips because cooking 100% grass-fed is a different process. So we try to provide as much education information for our members as possible so that they can make this transition and really come to enjoy those flavors and come to enjoy those qualities around 100% grass-fed.
You can get the share through SNAP too, which I think is really, really cool. And then there's a part of your CSA where people can donate in order to offset some of the extra cost of those people with SNAP getting access to your share.
You've got it. And we've been doing that for a number of years. And I would say about 10% of our membership are households that use their SNAP benefits to purchase a share. And that's an important thing for us.
Try to make it equal for everybody, or as best as we possibly can. And if eating meat is something that you're going to continue to do, but caring about the environment is something that you care about, I think you should think about eating small, eating local, and if you're going to keep eating meat, supporting the farms that do this sort of thing, like Hettie Belle Farm in Warwick, Mass., on the outskirts of Franklin County in the 978, near the fabulous 413. Olivier Flagolet and Jennifer Core from Hettie Belle Farm with their meat shares coming online very shortly. And Phil Corman from CISA, the local hero folks. You can find out about all our local hero farms at buylocalfood.org. Coming up, another way for you to care about the planet, specifically our local rivers.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monte Belmonte.
And I'm Clee Smith.
When we were talking earlier in the show about the Paper City Regatta and got off of a boat on the Connecticut River, I mentioned that this weekend is a way to get involved in the river without being on a boat. It's the Source to Sea Cleanup. It's the 27th annual coordinated volunteer effort up and down the entirety of the Connecticut River watershed, which starts in Pittsburgh, which most people don't know, but not Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, and goes all the way down to Long Island Sound, but cuts right through the Fabulous 413. And there are 127 registered locations up and down the Connecticut River where if you wanted to volunteer to haul trash out of the river, you have plenty of opportunities to do it.
Indeed.
I've done this probably, let's see, my son Enzo is 16. Mm-hmm. And so it was at least a couple years before that. So I think for like 18 years I've been volunteering at
for as long as Atticus has been around.
Yeah, that's more like it for sure. And I met a kid named Enzo doing the Source to Sea cleanup. And then I was like, hey, my grandfather's name was Crescenzo. Maybe now that we're having another baby, I should name him after that. And the rest is history. So not only do you get to pull trash out of the river and help the environment, make things cleaner, you might come up with a name for your child. And I would do it.
That's the correlation.
That's the correlation. I would do it at the Green River portion of the Source to Sea cleanup there. And my friend David Bowles, who's been putting that on for decades, is in charge of that. But there are literally more than 100 other places where you could volunteer to do this weekend. If you go to ctriver.org, you can start a team, you can join a team, and it always it's encouraging to see such a coordinated volunteer effort to make it happen.
And not that we want to encourage people to go outside of the 413 to do this, but since the Connecticut River goes through 4 states, there are locations throughout Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, and New Hampshire. In case you happen to be on vacation this weekend, you can still help out.
Yeah, there you go. And it's a great way to get involved, to get a little bit dirty. They say get dirty for cleaner rivers, and you can find out all the details about the Connecticut River Conservancy's Source to Sea cleanup at ctriver.org.
Indeed.
Well, tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
The other thing you can do this weekend.
What is it?
It's Fresh Grass.
Fresh Grass. We're going to make a beeline back to the Berkshires and broadcast live from the Fresh Grass Music Festival at Mass Mocha in North Adams.
We'll hear music from Becky Buller from the Becky Buller Band, fiddler and fiddle workshop instructor Daryl Anger from the band Mr. Sun.
Plus, we'll speak with some of the folks who are helping to make the whole festival happen, with Fresh Grass producers and with the Museum Mass Mocha itself.
Special thanks to Spouse, Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra, Talking Heads, DeBarge, Judy Garland, The Lonely Island, Jay Giles Band, The Suitcase Junket, Green Day, and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
It is the 21st day of December, after all. Our director is Tony, working from the car today, done.
Our engineers are Betsy, not incredibly linked, though. Phil, no choosing for you today, Bishop. Kara, it's money. Foster, Bart, Fresh Grass Fanatic, Rankin, and Punk Rude Boy Sharp Cheddar Dubé.
I'm Monte Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith, and even though he doesn't do them anymore, you might want to check out Demi Adijuibe's 21st of September videos today.
Oh.
Just
is it like
saying.
a video series?
Yeah. He doesn't do them anymore, but it's awesome.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
We will.